Hey guys, it's Dave, and welcome to my inaugural self-inflicted and self-sustained planting mistakes. Now these are mistakes for me, someone who should know better because I have been down this road over and over again. For you, if you're newer to plants, it's a learning curve, and if you're lucky, you can learn from my mistakes and avoid them. If you are an old hand at growing plants out there, it might be fun just to watch this. It's going to be lighthearted, making fun of myself mostly. And you can throw some stories in the comments about that planting mistake that you just cannot quit. Stick with me. First up is going to be a channel favorite. Had it on here a bunch of times. This is the species Hoya obscura. If you don't know this plant, along with Lacanosa, this produced the, I think, much more well-known and potentially popular, way more popular, Sunrise, and especially now Rebecca. I have no idea why Rebecca caught on, but she's hot right now. It may not show up well on camera. There are some light leaves up here. They've really repaired themselves from late winter when they were really quite yellow. The plant sits very close to a Barina T8 light. That's a 24 watt strip light. Now that 24 watts is spread all the way across the light as opposed to like a spot bulb where it would really be boring into it. I assumed it was just getting too much light and getting a little bit bleached out. It was spider mites. I didn't even bother to check. Of all the times that I took this plant down, and I had lost my Hoya Nicholsoniae New Guinea ghost to spider mites on the other side of the room. Didn't even occur to me to look until I started seeing a little bit of curling, a little bit of wilting, that kind of thing. And all it took was, for diagnosis, was to flip the leaf and see some damage. So that's one. You want to talk about a rookie mistake. I mean, I'm careful with words. I try to be careful with words because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, you know, like especially my own. So, one hates to say that I kind of screwed the pooch on that one because I spend a lot of time talking to you about how you should be doing pest management and keeping up on it and checking the yellow leaves and don't take anything for granted. And I just let the plant sit there and have the spider mites feed away on it. Yeah, that's all there is to say about that. Here's a perfect example of a leaf going yellow down towards the bottom of a vine, which is less likely to be spider mites, but it's worth checking anyway. At the soil level is where you should be checking first. But this could be indicative of a problem. And I see on socials when I get on there, which isn't that often anymore, but people dismiss yellow leaves as a natural part of the plant's aging and nothing to worry about. How could you possibly know that if you don't look at the plant? While that is, on the face of it, absolutely true, can't deny that, there could be an underlying problem even with a plant that has this many leaves. One turning yellow isn't alarming, but it is at least worth investigating. What will not come off on camera, I am certain, is that I just soaked this and it's looking a little better. There's another leaf. There were the subtle signs, and this is where experience is going to come into play, because someone new to this particular plant wouldn't even notice it. It would just look beautiful. It looks so gorgeous sitting on that shelf. You know, it's lovely. I sit straight across from it, but up close, just the beginning signs of a little bit of wrinkling, a little bit of dehydration. This is a plant that I now have to water frequently. And to ignore this is to potentially miss a big problem. This will be the plant that I trust I am finding in time. If you saw my recent glow down video with my, I was going to say gorgeous Hoya exotica, but formerly gorgeous Hoya exotica that I had to chop down into bits, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But let's get into the next mistake because it encompasses both of those plants. Hands up on who here among us has not sinned on that ignoring problems thing. Y'all know I'm a sober alcoholic and I have a lifetime. I have honed the art of ignoring problems and hoping for the best, and it doesn't always work out, does it? Time to move on. Mistake number 2, and this does encompass a whole bunch of scenarios, but I'll keep it focused to a few examples from my collection. The Hoya exotica I just referenced. I was growing that beautiful plant on the floor in my living room in front of vertical lighting that's not particularly strong enough to make that a gorgeous plant, definitely not strong enough to make it flower though. And so out of the goodness of my heart, I made space for that upstairs in front of a much brighter window, and I was going to make that its permanent home, and maybe someday in a year it will be its permanent home. But what I had not factored in is the difference in warmth between a ground floor room on the floor to going upstairs in a tall house to a very warm room in the summer while it's getting a ton of afternoon light. And I mean a ton of afternoon light. That change alone was a big enough stress for the plant. But mistake number 2 is not being prepared to adapt to the plant's new needs. And I'll give you 3 or 4 scenarios of that. But this was a case where that plant was drying out very, very quickly. And it was paired with plants that grow there permanently in the same size pots, which is a 6-inch pot. So 3 plants, I think, growing like that, big Hoya, looking great. New Hoya, not used to those conditions, drying out in the snap of the fingers. And this is in a very chunky mix anyway. And I was watering that plant as if it were still on the floor down here where we are right now. And that was a mistake. And that is one that I know better. That is one easily avoided mistake because all I had to do was check on it. And I didn't. And so those roots just got dry, you water it, and then they just turn to rot, and that's that. You end up making a video about the glow down plants. And by the way, the definition of glow down for me was plants that started this year looking a whole lot better than they're ending up looking at the end of the year. The Obscura kind of falls into this next category of mistake, or I guess it clearly does fall into this category, but I pulled 2 other examples. One because I'm mad about this mistake, and one because I'm mad about that mistake too. I should have avoided these, and I didn't. And that mistake is not adapting to the changes in the pot and soil and plant conditions. So as that plant grows up and it puts on more foliage and it puts on more roots and it needs more water, not making that change. So that would be the Obscura. More often what happens to me is putting that rooted cutting into like a 4-inch container, and I have a substrate loose enough that I don't mind having what would be a huge pot for some people if you follow random people's advice on the internet, like me, for instance. But things change, and Hoya grow roots very quickly, and all of a sudden that is a very thirsty plant, and it's growing well, it's putting on foliage, it's fantastic, and I'm not keeping up with the watering anymore. I have just missed the fact that those needs have changed, and sometimes dramatically. And then the growth tips are all dying back, or you start losing leaves, or you lose a plant, that kind of thing. So it's not just an environmental change, just monitoring the plant itself should be fairly easy for someone who has as much time on his hands as I do and spends as much time caring for plants as I do. I was going to grab the one that's really up my nose, but let's start instead with the Latifolia silver. I bought this from Crazy Plant Gal this early summer, I think. Does not come off on camera nearly as beautiful as it is in real life. A mistake I make all the time. I could have grabbed my Caraceae silver. I think that's it right now. I've got 2, but 2 really, really good plants that I watched the vine go buck wild on and didn't get trellised properly. It's usually not as dramatic a problem as it is with this latifolia. For the Caraceae, it's just very long internodal spacing. So beautiful leaves, a lot of vine. Beautiful leaf, a lot more vine. So I'll cut it back and make cuttings from it in a big beautiful plant next year. And I'm going to do the same with this one. I'll take cuttings, which I'd always intended to do. But what I hadn't intended to do was probably grow it under a light that is too powerful for the needs of this plant. So too much light, smaller leaves, didn't get it trellised. So we have really nice leaves that grew under my care. And then we have a smaller leaf. I don't know what happened here because we got just slightly bigger, smaller, 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 smaller. Come on now. Could nothing have been done with this plant at any point this summer? No, I guess not. Absolutely nothing could have been done because one would have done it. The one that both breaks my heart and annoys me the most is an orchid, because not only did I know that this needed to be repotted kind of ASAP, I had ample evidence of it. Now in there you will see some little growths that have gone brown. Those were aborted because the plant got way too dry. This has the most adorable giraffe flower. This pot, the sphagnum moss in it, terrible combination. I think when I potted this up, that, I'm just going from memory, that the sphagnum moss is really, really, really loose. This pot, it just doesn't hold moisture. And I have plenty of small pots with sphagnum moss that do just fine. This is an outlier, and I knew it. But what happened? What happened is I was keeping up on the watering, and it put out this flower spike here with not 1, 2, or 3 buds, 7. 7 buds on this flower spike. 7 little giraffe flowers that last so long. Adorable. Absolutely adorable little dwarf plant. I put this on a top shelf in my living room, which is dramatically warmer than, say, next to my love seat in the living room where it used to be. Didn't keep up with the watering, and it blasted all 7 of those buds. Yeah, it's gonna grow another flower spike and it's gonna be cute in the future, but I could have had that now. I could have had that going into next year, those cute little flowers, but I ain't gonna. All right, those were the long explanation ones. I'm gonna give you the 3 shorter explanation ones. And I just did a memory dump and I heard my humidifier fan whirring away in the other room in the audio. So sorry about that, but honestly, I don't have the energy to redo the whole video, so I hope it wasn't too annoying. This one, I don't even know how it could happen to me, but winter comes every single year with me being completely unprepared for it. Every single year. So for me, being prepared for it would be having the porch to my left, your right, empty of plants right now on November 11th. On November 11th in Iowa, I still have the plant porch open. We had a huge drop in temperature, which means I have 2 oil heaters out there, kind of set to medium low, but on each end of the porch. And I mean, the plants are loving it out there. They probably will not want to come back in to the house proper with those warm temperatures, because they ain't going to get it in here. But this year, I'm like closer to being close to being almost ready to start thinking about beginning to actually do something with the plants in there. Don't you judge me. Progress is progress. I don't need your validation. I need your validation. I wouldn't be here if I didn't need someone's validation, I am sure. This year is better. Last year I had fought root mealies all spring and summer and fall, and I wasn't sure, in the tent, by the way. So I wasn't sure if that problem had been solved or not, and I was not willing to risk it. And the problem for me was, what do I do with all those plants? And I made it work, but it wasn't great. Now, what usually happens is that this dining room table is filled with plants, and the chandelier that hangs above it is filled with grow lights for a while. Oh, my wife, she's a lucky girl. The two things that apply to me are, I have a staghorn fern that is now 4 feet wide, diagonal, up, down, all directions. It's huge. I don't really know where I'm putting that yet. Where I used to do it, have it in the winter, was hanging on this wire shelf in the room formerly known as my home office when I needed one of those. Inconvenient once a day when I do the cat box, but not ideal, but okay. I certainly couldn't put any shelves or any other plants where it was. It may need a wall, and there are really just a couple spots that may work. And I have to keep in mind, I had all summer to think about this, I have to take it off the wall to water it and take it downstairs and use a hose. But yeah, that should have been worked out. Other than that, now it's just a matter of what plants are out there that I want displayed in the living room. Do I want to shift something around to the tent that's not doing anything right now? Maybe some orchids that aren't going to bloom until spring or summer, something like that. Small stuff, easy to take care of, and I 100% guarantee there will be a table full of plants with grow lights above it for at least 2 weeks coming up soon. Number 5 is another one that just it irritates me to no end, because it's one of those, I've made the mistake, I've made it over and over again, I should have learned from that mistake, and yet I found myself doing it just this year. And that is with not trusting my own proven strategies to grow plants well. Specifically, at least for this list, I could probably do this list biannually if you want, is not getting a plant that I buy from like Crazy Plant Gal into my own substrate. Just assuming because it grows well for her, it will for me. Or knowing for a fact that in my own mix, I have put way too much cocoa coir, because when you sift it, you kind of put it in, and for me, the chunks often end up in my hand and the cocoa coir in the pot. And you'll know if you've done that. If you take your pot and it's light and it's dancing around in your left hand, I guess, and then you water it, and suddenly that pot weighs 10 times more than it used to, you are dealing with a very moisture-rich substrate. And for me, that ain't great. I won't grab it because it was in the glow down video and I want to move through a little more quickly. But yeah, my Polyneura suffered. I just, again, hoping for the best. A substrate I don't use, way denser from Crazy Plant Gal than I use. But she's really happy with it. And I thought, the plant was growing well for a while until the roots were just absolutely being suffocated in this block of PD, cocoa coir, perlite. I'm not even sure what it is. It's from Home Depot. She gave me a bag of it, and would I use it to mix in with some, I don't know, cocoa chips or something? No, I'm never going to use it again. No. Y'all, I cannot express to you how great this room smells right now. It is just delicious. All right, next mistake that I know better, I talk to you about it all the time, is pest management. And yes, we saw the Obscura. That was ignoring a pest. But once I knew I had spider mites, which beyond the root mealy, fiasco, which was a real outlier, that's the only pest I have here. And I'm usually pretty on top of it. This year, I got that puppy. It's been sucking my energy, my life force out of my body, and I've let some things go. Now, last year I ignored Hoya Nicholsoniae New Guinea Ghost when it had falling leaves, and I lost that plant amazingly quickly. It went from falling leaves, which I thought was due to furnace heat, to the plant was absolutely decimated. Happened again this year to a Hoya Nicholsoniae, the one that's been on my channel several times, that I got from a cutting for one of you. Hate to lose a favorite plant. But when you reduce a collection like I have to plants that I really love growing, if I lose a plant, I'm probably going to lose one that I really like. So the downside of being picky. That plant, I saw a yellowing leaf towards the base of the plant and examined it, and it had a couple of noticeable spider mites. Do not forget about eggs. Do not forget about eggs. Don't you forget about eggs like I did, because I treated that plant one time and then I put it back, and for the next, I don't know, week or two, not 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, I just treated it like normal and just let it be. And I'm not on the plant porch much because it's just not the right season, and the dog, the puppy, is sane enough to be in the living room and the rest of the house here with light supervision. When I went back to water that, maybe the second or third time from treating it once, it was absolutely infested with spider mites. And I don't mean it had a lot of spider mites. I mean every single leaf was white, the backside. And no saving that plant. I wouldn't even try, not for that common plant. Honest to God, a plant that far gone. I don't know, what would you even do for it? Well, you can tell me what you would do. I'd be curious, but it was absolutely just composted. And hurts to lose a really beautiful plant. It hurts more when probably could have been avoided. The last one might be the easiest one to avoid. That's a buying decision. Buying plants that aren't appropriate for my grow space. I will venture out and buy warm, hot growing Hoya, none of which survived last year, last winter, not one of them. I think I had 4 or 5. I thought, how seriously should I take that? More seriously than I did, because the plants died and I lost the money I invested in those. I did end up with 2 warm growing orchids from the show, but I just didn't have time to do the research because I'd already missed out on a couple of plants I was interested in. I had specifically gone for a miniature orchid, a species orchid, and they had a beautiful one, and that is doing really well. The other one that was more of an impulse buy is having some adaptation problems. To grow in my house, it's a wide lane. So if I'm trying to head straight down the middle, it's cooler intermediate to the upper end of intermediate is pretty okay. Anything that needs to be cool all year around or grow warm hot, either of those extremes, they're just not going to do well here. And I guarantee you, if I see a plant next year at Crazy Plant Gal and it's a warm grower, because I've grown quite a few that are not supposed to be grown in my conditions that have done okay over the years. I don't know. I don't think I'll learn my lesson. I think I'll try it and see how it goes. But I am much better off just going straight down the middle lane. All right, we are going to wrap it up in the winner circle. 4 mistakes that I have learned to avoid. So we've got, 6 mistakes that I still continually make and 4 that I don't. So a 6-to-4 ratio. I mean, that's a C+, B- in the high school I went to in Florida. The first of those mistakes is I don't take advice from essentially random strangers anymore. Unreliable advice. People I don't know how they grow. When I was at that orchid show, I wasn't eavesdropping. It just, the guy was near me and guys talk so loud. So I take it this guy was growing in a greenhouse. And he was schooling, like some people took me aside too and gave me a lot of good information who didn't know me. I don't know why they did, but thank you. If you're watching this, that was a lot of fun. But giving this woman an education about orchids. And so he grabbed a Cattleya, and it was in a pot, 6-inch pot, I assume that, it was about like that. And he was saying, a plant like this, you only need to water this once every 2 weeks, and he was giving a litany of advice like that. And then he said, and then when it flowers, it doesn't need any light at all. Doesn't need any light. You can put it anywhere you want. Put it in your windowless dining room and have it as a centerpiece on your table, and it's fine. Is it? Because I have a cattleya that was in pristine bloom for well over 2 months this year, and should have cut probably the flowers off at that point. And it went another couple of weeks, still looking, pretty good. Did that really not need any light at all for 2.5 months plus? I'm skeptical. But more to the point is giving advice to somebody on how often to water a plant. If he had told me that, well, I wouldn't have said anything. I would have just nodded along and thought, you're doing it wrong. Because if you're giving that information to a novice, they might take you seriously, and that could be a really terrible idea. Because me growing here in Iowa in a very cool house in the winter in bark with furnace heat, I don't have anything that I water every 2 weeks except like a tree. So you got to ask questions like, where are you growing? How warm is the room? Is it near a window? Is it near a south window? Is it near a north window? Is it getting supplemental light? Is it getting a bunch of air circulation? These are important questions. And I know lots and lots and lots of YouTubers say it, but it matters tremendously. Just in my house, the difference between growing downstairs and upstairs is very, very different. So if I'm an expert in anything in this entire world, and I'm not, except this one thing, nobody knows more about it than I do, it's growing plants in this house. So when I hear advice like that you talk about grain of salt, it's beyond even that. And on the socials, it's just all over the place. So I go to reliable sources. Oh God, my favorite. I have to mention my favorite one right now is you have to look at a plant that's growing in situ. And if you're unfamiliar with in situ, that means just like going to its native habitat and seeing how it would grow. Is it growing on rocks? Is it growing in a tree? Low on the tree or high in the tree? What's the elevation? What's the humidity? All of that. And it's like, if you're not growing it like that, like perhaps one I just read. It's a twig growing plant. So you need to water it in the morning and the roots need to be dry by night. Otherwise you're going to kill the plant. Well, that's a bold and inaccurate statement, because I grow some of those plants here in sphagnum moss and I water once a week. So, but yeah, if you're a beginner, you might listen to that and think, oh man, I have to replicate that in my own home. You can't replicate a native tropical plant environment in your house. So we have to take a really important piece of information. Where does this plant grow well? And see what we can do in our homes, what we can adapt to get closer to that, knowing we're never going to get really close to it. And fortunately for us, plants are adaptable. Shop down the middle-ish, bring it into your home, and there's a good chance, if you really have your fundamentals in order, that you're going to grow a plant well. I assure you, if you are a beginner and you're struggling, you will get good at this if you just put in the time and avoid one of my upcoming mistakes. The next one is so obvious that it's trite, and that's consistency. Just like in almost everything in my life, consistency pays off. It just really does. And so my plant care, for the most part, is not up and down. Sometimes I'm really on top of it, and sometimes I'm forgetting about everything. We've discussed some outliers on that, but for the most part, this is a huge hobby for me. I'm really into it. I seem to get more excited about this hobby as time goes on. I know some people get burned out, and to me that means, I'm sorry to say this, but probably too many plants. If you're getting burned out by your collection, it's just probably too much to take care of, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with thinning the herd. I did it last year. I went from over 400 plants to, I don't know. I don't really know how many plants I have. Call it 175. I'm not positive, but that's a good number. A manageable collection for me. 10 might be unmanageable for somebody else. Maybe 5 is the number. Anyway, whatever that right number is, that you can consistently take good care of your plants, you're on the right track for better growing. Okay, I'm going to grab a plant for the next mistake, and then I'm going to give you the most important thing that I've learned probably in life, but in plant care. I didn't realize there were a bunch of new flowers, well, on their way anyway, for Hoya Rebecca. This is a plant that has really gained some popularity, as I was saying earlier. I don't know how long it's been popular, but I hear a lot about this. Had a ton of people ask me for a cutting of this. I'm not selling any plants or cuttings at this time. Well, it's dead cold here in Iowa, so that's irrelevant. Certainly not at this time of year. But this plant, the story with this one is that it was growing in the grow tent, and it fell, I don't know, it fell probably 4 or 5 times. Twice it broke the pot, and that's kind of a lot of trauma for a plant, and especially a Hoya, to constantly be knocked on its head. The broken pot, the spilled substrate, that's like a repot. That is stressful for a plant. And now, you know, most Hoyas aren't as delicate as we act like they are. Some certainly are. But then when it got too big and I got really sick of that, or it pulling down other plants because it was vining into everything, as pretty as that sun stressing was under a very powerful light, I moved it to the porch, set it up on something very high. I know a lot of you have heard this story, like my head height high, which is not that high. Knocked it over, smashed it, and that was it. Rebecca had had enough, and I potted it up in this 6-inch pot, and she looked miserable, horrible, for months and months. Vines were dying off. The ones that were here were not looking good. Here's another close-up of her. And what I did was nothing at all. And that is the lesson, is that with plants, I had to learn to stop putting my kind of random human expectations on how they should be growing, whether it's one that's repairing itself or one that isn't growing as fast as I want it to, getting leaves as large as I want them to as they're young, or there are a lot of scenarios like the plant is not growing like I want it to. It's really hard to imagine that my intervention couldn't be more helpful to the plant than just letting it do what it knows how to do, and that is grow. These were here way before we were, and they will probably be here long after too. They know what they're doing. It's only disappointing when I put an expectation in my head and the plant isn't living up to it. In this case, it would have been, it's not looking good, I'm going to repot it again. I'm going to help. And that probably would have killed it, no doubt. And you can get away with that. There are some tough plants that you can keep repotting and they'll just kind of chug along, but it's a setback. Every time you do it, it's a little bit of a setback. Some come back very quickly and come back stronger for sure. Not this sick one, but it's hard to take a little plant and think, well, it's just not doing anything. I need to intervene. You probably don't. Now, the Obscura, one of the parents of this plant, I need to intervene. This one I needed to leave alone. How do you make that distinction? Experience. And so that's frustrating. Some plants will probably have to be sacrificed or set back over and over again. Sometimes you may just get busy and realize, oh my God, the plants are doing so well without me. Just like the YouTube channel did when I didn't post for 3 months. It did great without me. I was almost offended. Last up is, it's like a mistake to avoid, but as much a perspective to hold on to. And that is just, I take it easy on myself. You know, I don't feel bad if a plant dies, you know, even if it's neglect, like the spider mites, you know, and I took it to the compost. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. But this is a weird hobby. I mean, you know, just things happen. And, you know, whether it's one plant that doesn't get taken care of or a big life change happens and it's a whole collection that doesn't get taken care of, they go downhill without us. So, you know, it's not 100% hands off these plants and they know what they're doing. We brought them inside, so they need our help. But we won't be 100% successful, and that's okay. Like, this is not serious. At least that's my perspective. You know, I'm not a nurse, a doctor, a teacher, a bus driver, grocery clerk, refuse collector. Those people don't show up for their job. They're missed. I don't show up for mine. Well, you might miss me and some plants will suffer, but it's okay. If you've made it this far, you're a fan of this channel. So I want to tell you about a couple family members of mine, and that's my great-grandmother and great-grandfather. Son and daughter of Irish immigrants in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Very poor. They gardened and got really good at growing plants to eat. Food. So that was hugely important to be good at that. That mattered. And my great-grandmother was the greatest gardener I've ever known personally. It's not to say the best, anywhere, but she was wonderful. And when they married, of course, and bought a little house, my great-grandfather was a carpenter, and then the Great Depression hit. And this is told to me by my grandmother and verified by my great-grandparents, though they were not the type to ever talk about it. But during the Great Depression, hungry people would show up there at their house, and they would set them a plate. If you're not Southern, set them a plate means prepare a plate of food and serve it to your guest. And that's a remarkable thing, to take what little you have and feed someone who's hungry. And so that's who they were. And no one had to tell them to do that or, encourage them, or they didn't do it to make themselves feel good about themselves. Like I said, they never mentioned it to me. They only verified that it happened. So that is important. This growing beautiful plants in the home, that's a vanity project in comparison, and it's okay to fail from time to time, no matter what level of experience you're at, and it's a great hobby. So if you're in the stage where you're still feeling badly about how you were doing, lighten up. You really do owe it to yourself to just enjoy the process, the ups and the downs. It's a good time, and you will get better and better at it. I mean, look at me. I can't stop telling you how good I am at growing plants. Whether I deserve that compliment to myself or not. No one deserves to compliment themselves or not. Anyway, I've had fun today. I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye-bye.